welcome to today's episode of the podcast where we sit down with some of the sharpest minds in the management consulting industry. This episode is powered by Clubhouse AI. At Clubhouse AI, we help management consulting firms break free from outdated lead gen methods like networking events and referrals, which often feel more like wishful thinking than a real strategy. Our battle-tested data-driven client acquisition system brings in your ideal clients with no chasing, no guesswork, just predictable compounding growth. If you're in management consulting and looking to scale your business and see results within the first week, DM us the word growth for a free consultation. Now, without further ado, let's jump right into it. Today, we have a very special guest who is Sean McCarthy, owner of Bold City Coaching Company. Thank you so much for being here today. Why don't you go ahead and give yourself an introduction and tell us a little bit about your story and what you do.
Well, I appreciate it, Ethan. Thank you very much. I am Coach Sean McCarthy. I am a certified executive life coach and business coach that, typically works with small business owners and executives to help them increase their clarity, develop successful strategies, overcome their own psychological obstacles that get in their way to really create the results that they're looking for in their business, but also in their lives. My primary client is a small business owner, including solopreneurs and owner operators and independent professionals. But most of my clients typically have 25 employees or less. They've often got some of their systems already defined, Ethan, but it's not perfect for them, and it's still, they're still stumbling through it, if you will, because they started out, they're really good at what they do, but they always didn't have all the background of what it takes to run a successful business.
Awesome. And what got you into that?
Yeah, very interesting. So the quick abridged version is I worked 16 years working with at-risk adolescents and wanted to continue after owning a small business of my own, wanted to continue that work with kids, and I didn't want to go back and get my Master of Social Work. I have a psychology degree and didn't want my MSW. And at that time, I had found somebody. This was back in like 2007, possibly, maybe even before that, 2006. And she called herself a parent coach. Man, I was like, that sounds really cool. What exactly is a parent coach? Being in social service world, I didn't work with business coaches. We'd have consultants come in every now and then, but not so much coaches. And so my first coaching certificate is actually parent and family coaching because I followed down that path. As I went down that, I talked with the dean of our school, if you will, and was like, talk to me about business coaching because I realized a lot of the work that I was doing with families, I was like, man, if I would have had that with partners that I had in my business, I probably would have still been doing that business. But I had zero basis of it. And so then I went back and got my coaching certification, my executive coaching certification, and have continued on since 2008, predominantly working with small business owners.
That's awesome. And what made you specifically want to be an entrepreneur and a business owner rather than going and working for someone else?
That's a great question. And it's interesting as I think back, I think I've always had some of the entrepreneurial spirit. And my dad, who was traditionally employee minded, he didn't see it. And so my dad was involved in the community and knew a lot of the small business owners. I don't think he kind of caught on. Now, my siblings, they would all call me a con man versus an entrepreneur, because I was always looking kind of, and as bad as it sounds, like that next hustle, another way to make some money, something along those lines. It's very interesting as I listen to Gary Vaynerchuk and some of the stories he tells. I'm like, see, like that was me when I was a kid, and then I was kind of got put down by it. Um, the other one is, I mean, being completely vulnerable. When I was younger, I had a hard time working for people that I didn't respect, that I didn't, I often felt like they weren't good leaders. Having studied leadership in college and so forth, I would recognize that, and that kind of put me off. And so I think going down in a more entrepreneurial, a business owner approach where I was really accountable to myself, I holding myself to those levels just made more sense as opposed to getting frustrated working for someone else that you just didn't respect or always, wanted to put the hours in for, if that makes any sense.
Of course, yeah. You wanna blaze your own trail. You don't want to be working for somebody else and taking orders from someone else. You want to do what you want to do, and of course, I'm sure you respect yourself, so you want to work for someone you respect. So I completely understand. So that's amazing. And would you be able to share how you fit into the bigger picture of your company and what your day-to-day looks like?
Absolutely. So, I'm one of my own typical clients. I am an owner operator, if you will, and I have had small teams, and at different times have had other coaches working with me and assistants and so forth. But my primary role is, I do both sides where I'm out meeting with potential clients and working on the sales side of it. I do a lot of the marketing. I have some teams that help me with the marketing along those lines. But my typical day to day is a little mix of all of it. And like I said, I typically am a great example for where I try to model myself for my clients. So my day to day starts usually before the sun gets up. And I usually start with some good bold coffee, and I check the news headlines, kind of look at any relevant articles or current events that can impact my clients, and just stay abreast of what's going on in the world around me. Another one, I mean, it's funny as I say that and start going through the routine in my head, Ethan, is I also start, so it's not just coffee. I start with the same thing that I try to tell my clients, and that's I start with 32 ounces of water, usually before the second cup of coffee. I mean, I think the coffee kind of hits first. Um, then I do a little bit of reading. Right now, I'm reading a book by Mike Michalowicz called Profit Formula. I've listened to it on audiobook and going back and rereading it and highlighting that. I typically start the day then after a little bit of reading, doing some journaling where I review my goals, review my day, jot down any thoughts that might come to me from whatever the news headlines were or whatever came out of the book that I was reading. Many mornings, it's then getting into kind of stretching and exercise. For me, exercise typically is pickleball. Live in the great state of Florida, and we've got a great pickleball community here.
Love it.
In fact, was able to get a few hours in or an hour and a half in before as I started the day today. And then usually getting into client calls. Now, obviously, if I have client calls that are starting early, yeah, the exercise comes a little bit later in the day. After client calls, usually going to have about three client calls. And those are kind of a twofold, right? It's an accountability check-in for my clients. And then they're also a strategy call. And so we're spending a little bit of time about tracking where they're at in their progress of their business. And yes, we're doing the accountability of did they get the things done that they committed to, but then we're going to talk through whatever challenges they might be having and developing that next strategy for them. Typically after that, it's a lot of follow-ups. And those follow-ups can look like whether it's leads that came into to us. Occasionally, it's following up on folks that are in that pipeline and seeing if they're ready to take on that next step. Sometimes it's one-to-one meetings with referral partners or potential clients, including free coaching calls and business assessment calls that come in through the website. We offer both of those to our clients as a way to kind of get to know it. One, really, it's pre-qualifying them a little bit to make sure they're a good fit for the coaching that we offer, but also then for them to begin to realize that every coach has a little bit of a different style, and so getting to know my style a little bit. And then after that, typically it's getting ready to make dinner for the family. Might be able to sneak in a beach walk, or if I didn't get the pickleball in the morning, be able to do it in the afternoon or evening along those lines. So that's what a typical day for me looks like. If that answers the question.
Yeah, of course. That sounds ideal. It sounds like a good day there. I wouldn't complain with that. That's awesome. I'm glad you're still able to fit in time for family and have some fun and exercise as well.
I think that's an important point. I'm glad that you bring that up, is because if you're an entrepreneur and you're not prioritizing family and kind of some of the things that you need to stay healthy, at least mentally, it's so easy to get burned out. And so,
Yep.
I'll be a little bit mean about it and go, yeah, and I live 6 blocks from the beach, so it's always easy to, I can make excuses of why not to go to the beach, but I try to reframe that and go, let's find an excuse of why I do need to go to the beach today. So.
Right. Yeah. Always a good excuse to go to the beach. I think lived in Florida my whole life, and I think the past few months I haven't been to the beach that much. Maybe I should start going some more.
Yeah,
But
so you got to get that on your calendar, man. Make it a
that's right. I
priority.
need to make a block for it. Well, now that we've kind of covered who you are, what you do, how you got to where you are today, we'll go a little bit broader and let's see how has AI affected your business and your growth strategy? How has that affected the way you guys do business?
Absolutely. So, I mean, AI, there's two parts to it really for me. One is how do I use it as a tool for me? And the second is educating my client base to help them utilize this tool, this resource that's available to them. And it's like anything else. Been coaching now for 18 years, and I guess that's not quite 18, 17 plus years. And there's always some new bright and shiny object. I mean, all the time, whether it was social media and Facebook and for a while there, it was helping folks learn the value of Google My Business or Google Local back in the time. I mean, it's just been renamed over and over. But there was always things, and everybody's like, "Oh, this is the next hot thing." And AI is, yes, a hot thing, and it's a great resource for small business owners. But it takes a little bit of time to learn it and how to use that resource well. And so for me, a lot of how I use AI is also learning how to use it, right? Getting better at prompts and getting better at how much information do I share. One of the ones that I use regularly is ChatGPT. I've tried out kind of Claude and Gronk and or Grok and some of the different ones. And ChatGPT for me seems to line up pretty well. And one of those key factors though is recognizing, like any resource or tool, you've got to learn how to use it well. And then I actually come from a bit of a computer programming background. So, recognizing the information, the inputs that you put in are probably more important than, to recognize if you want good inputs or outputs later on, you've got to input good information. And so learning how to write those prompts to get those good outputs, but also how to customize it so that it's yours and not just a writing assistant or something along those lines. So that's number one. Two is for me is then taking those same lessons that I'm learning myself and that I'm studying regularly and using that to teach my clients. And yes, I teach it a little bit as far as how they can start using AI as their own kind of assistant. But the second part is it makes them a better business owner as far as helping them recognize that often they probably aren't providing enough quality onboarding or education or direction to the employees that they have. And so that's again it's been a nice benefit to when they're complaining to me about like, well, AI is not working because of X, Y, or Z. I'm able to go in and delve a little bit deeper with them and come to find out, well, they haven't really educated it. They haven't provided the prompts. They haven't provided the clear direction of the outputs that they want. And so they're not getting the results. Yes, it's a little bit of AI, but it's a whole lot of more of a reflection that that business owner struggles at times to be clear on the expectations, be clear on what outputs they want. And typically what I'm finding is, Ethan, is that that's been going on in their business for years sometimes. And they didn't have that direct reflection that AI can provide. Now, obviously, use AI and have been using AI for, some of the simple tasks that more people are aware of how you can use it for marketing purposes and really helping you build out a better strategy at times and then execute it. I use it also as a kind of a conversationalist. I mean, and whether it be accountability partner, a sounding board, a writing assistant for emails and article writing as well. But I'm trying to build it also so that it serves almost as one of my assistant coaches. Having that tool that can provide different perspectives, sometimes, programming it and prompting it to play devil's advocate to really help me think through a particular issue or a particular problem. Um, and again, any way that I can. I mean, obviously, to book clients for video editing, a ton of research that goes on for me. All of those are regular uses for me for AI.
That's awesome. And I thank you for sharing all the different ways you've been using it. Yeah, I think like you said in the beginning, it's an amazing tool for these owner operators and solopreneurs as an assistant, because rather than it being just themselves or themselves, and maybe their wife or their husband, now they have AI to go hand in hand with them and say, listen, you take care of this task, you help me with this, and I'll focus on this. And you can automate those boring admin tasks or whatever it may be that go on during your day that takes away time from working with their clients finding new clients, making money, doing your marketing, all that sort of stuff. And you can hand that off to AI and even make it more efficient. So I think it's an amazing thing that you're utilizing.
One of my favorites is prior to AI, right? I would have a lot of clients who would look at hiring a virtual assistant. And one of my favorite instructions that I would give, because these virtual assistants, they've worked with a variety of different business owners in the past. And so I'd have clients go, well, I don't even know how I should be using the virtual assistant. And I would frequently prompt them to go, just ask the virtual assistant. Like once they've learned your business, like go, hey, how could I better be utilizing you and where could you benefit my business? And the virtual assistant usually, once they were asked, had ideas, had suggestions. The same is true after you've spent a little bit of time with your favorite AI bot to go through it a little bit and regularly ask it, how should I be using you? How could I better benefit from all of your capabilities? This goes, I mean, to take this a little bit further, even with what I do, Ethan, but going, this is that clue that often entrepreneurs and business owners, they don't do that with their employees either, right? They don't go back and go, hey, wow, you've worked for me for 3 years now. Man, you seem like you've got a lot of skills, a lot of talents. How could I better be utilizing you? Right? I think if more people recognized a better way to leverage the tools and resources that we have, man, the world would be a better place and employees would be happier. And yes, now, I mean, obviously that means, getting more out of AI, getting more out of virtual assistants and remote workers as well. But sorry, didn't mean to hijack the AI question, but I think that it applies in the context of there's so much more that it could do. And one of the first places to start is ask it how it could help.
Of course, yeah. I think it's important for all aspects of business, like you said as well. Going back in and prompting your employees and your assistants to see, yeah, exactly how can I be using you better? What other avenues can I use you in and how can you work best for me? I think it's very important and it relates right back to AI and how it can work for these business owners. So that's awesome. What's really working well for you guys right now? And what's kind of been frustrating you in terms of your business?
It's interesting. One of the challenges, and part of this is back on me. One of the things that frustrated me was the shift that, the trajectory that was happening, and then as COVID kind of hit, the world changed. And one of those things that I've used in the past for me was I love live events. And COVID really drove home this idea of what we're doing right here, right? More virtual conversations and virtual events. And I think that there's something different for live events. There's a different energy, a different buzz. But I have encountered where people just that that they're not willing to travel, and part of that though is I think some of it is the what's going on in the travel industry right now and the airline industry. So people aren't as willing to travel distances to those some of those live events because some of the folks in my industry and coaching and so forth are turning everything into virtual events, and I think that there's something that's missing. So that's a frustrating thing for me because I've used live events in the past to grow my business, and we were just about there as COVID hit, and then the world turned upside down. So live events were out for 2 years or whatever the case be. And now that I'm kind of chomping at the bit to start doing, more live events, it's interesting to me of the pushback and feedback that I get from folks of like, well, can't we just do this virtually? And a big factor for me is accountability, is a little bit of the, like I said, the energy in a room of just being around those people. I think some of it gets lost in the virtual event world. So that's one that for me at least, that's been complicating my business because I really do love live events. I love that opportunity to teach and train, and kind of really give a massive impact to folks, even though they may not be ready for the ongoing coaching, but to kind of give them the lessons and help them figure out how do you apply some of those lessons. So that's one for me. What's been working great, to shift gears and cover both sides of your question is I love the AI aspect. And I think for me, it's always the excitement of just learning the next thing and learning something new that's, whether you want it to have an impact or not, the truth of it is it's going to have an impact. It's going to impact your business. And it's I think important to as someone that works regularly and works as an advocate for small business owners, I think it's important for me to stay abreast of what is kind of best practices. And it's difficult because things are changing so quickly right now with AI.
Right.
And yeah, that's a major part of it. So it's fun for me, but it's also like I know I'm watching it regularly and feeling like I'm, behind the eight ball always. I'm like, I can't imagine what it's going to be like for those small business owners and other entrepreneurs who aren't keeping up.
Right. Yeah, it's moving faster than anything I've ever seen before. You can go a day and not be keeping up to date, and you'll be behind. If maybe next week we'll see some brand new technology and use for AI that's gonna be game changing and put me and you out of business. And
I, well,
we'll
I, I'll tell you, I ask that all the time, Ethan, of going, I'm constantly in that conversation. I'm like, because again, sometimes I'm using it as an assistant coach to help me think through ideas faster. Where a lot of times my clients, they're a variety of different industries. And I can't stay abreast of every single industry that's going
Mhm.
on. So, especially like a new client call, I do a little, normally in the past, I would go to Google and I would try to understand what are some of the bigger challenges for whatever particular industry might be going on. Where now, my chat GPT can do that really quickly for me and pull up some of that. But then I'm just like, well, gosh, why can't the business owner? I'm like, am I just working myself out of a job? I'm teaching this chat how to do my job.
Right.
I do like it that chat constantly reminds me that I'm necessary, that I am, I'm not going to be without a job anytime soon. But it's doubtful because I know how well I use it, but it moves so fast. So a little tip and trick, if I can, to your listeners
Yeah.
and to your audience is if you're not using ChatGPT or some sort of AI, use it and then have it pull your headlines. Your chances are you're using a news aggregator that's checking the sites that you go look for. You're using Google and it's aggregating news articles for you. I do all of that as well, but I also have my chat give me a daily briefing of particular topics, one of which is what's happening in the AI world as far as small business is going. So you can teach it to do that for you as whatever's relevant for your business and the customers and clients that you serve as an entrepreneur. It's again, it's just a small fraction of a way that you can leverage it, and it's a daily briefing, so it's not repeating the same news articles, which was one of my complaints that the Google when it would do it, sometimes the articles would be 4 months old, and as you just said, sometimes things are changing and moving so quickly, it was already old information.
Right. Yeah, you've got to stay up to date, and I think AI is a great thing to do that with. I mean, if I think this is going to be like social media and Facebook back before my time, but but those businesses that didn't adopt social media and marketing on those outlets and Facebook and whatever it may be, they fell behind, and they weren't they didn't have the advantage of these businesses that were early adopters of social media had, and I think it's going to be the same thing for AI. If you're not adopting this new tools and all these things that can make you more efficient and can make you better studied and better researched, then you're not going to have as much as advantage as the people that have adopted it and been using it in their business every day. I think I'm glad that you've been using it and you're very focused on how to use it best and how you can be using it better. And I think that's an amazing thing. Well, now we kind of covered what you're doing really well and how you're using AI and what's kind of been frustrating you in terms of your industry there. What are your goals for expansion? What are your goals for next 6 to 12 months? What are you looking to do to achieve in your business and in terms of growth?
Yeah, again, it goes a little bit back to the live events. One, and I'm often like the same clients that I tend to work with, right? I get stuck in my own head. And it's also funny, I guess another one that's been happening for me is I'll have these ideas of like, yeah, okay, I want to start rolling out more workshops, at least on a local basis. And then if those work out, obviously that's kind of the beta test, and then you can do it on the virtual and um, see how people react and respond to it, right? My biggest thing as a coach is I don't want it's really easy. You can go get a lot of information. I don't want to just be a source of information. I want to be able to break it down simple enough for you so that you'll take action on it. And that's the big key for me. A lot of times on the virtual side, it's a little bit harder to know whether people took action or not. if they don't sign up for one-on-one coaching. So one of my bigger goals is to do more and implement more of what I encourage my clients to do, which is leveraging their time. So that looks a little bit more like workshops for me. Looks a little bit. I've resisted doing group coaching because I've not always liked the lesser results that those clients in group coaching. I've got a coach myself right now who's really good at reminding me. He's like, yeah, but sometimes people aren't ready for massive results. They need
Hmm.
small incremental ones, and that still makes a big change. And so that's really what's on the agenda for me is leveraging my time. As I said, I've gone before and worked with other coaches, and that's a different dynamic for me. Where leveraging the information that I use regularly with my clients, it's nothing new for the coaching world, but it would definitely be new for my business because it's not been something that I've always embraced and liked. Now, with that being said, AI has made that so much easier. I'm one that I could go to write a blog article, and what thought, I've got time blocked for 90 minutes would end up turning into a short novel and take me 2 days. AI has been able to help kind of streamline that, help tweak it down and give, multiple drafts and still allow my voice to be heard. Well, the same thing would happen if I would create a course or anything like that. AI sure makes that easy. So that's a lot of where I look to go and say, to still be able to make sure I have the beach time and some time for pickleball, leveraging that AI to help put out still top quality content, but still keep some accountability available for that for clients moving forward. That's really kind of what the next, year. I know you said 6 to 12 months. Really, I mean, we're so close to this point at 2026 that would probably say 12 to 14 months, in my mind at least. And in continuing what we just discussed, right, is learning and figuring out the appropriate applications for what AI looks like for my customer or for my clients and their customers even, because that's really where so much of this world and society is going to be changing and shifting to. And the truth of it is, I think some of it is it's going to force some people into entrepreneurship or small business ownership because they may lose a job that they've had for years because it was more the information they had that that's why they were being kept around in a business, and that may not be as necessary in the near future. And so I think some of those people are going to become business owners themselves.
Yeah, yeah, that'd be amazing and expanding your horizons there. What would it mean for you to achieve this? I mean, like personally.
Now you sound like me. These are the kind of questions I ask my clients all the time. Um, Obviously, right? It's that ability to, and especially as I get older, Ethan, it's about knowing that I've had an impact on somebody. Going, full circle of saying, when I worked with kids and families, I love it when I can help a small business owner kind of figure out the necessary the steps that they need to take to begin to free them up, because so often, right, the cliche terms are spending so much time in the day-to-day operations of the business and not enough time on the business. Once they get better and understand that as they spend more time on the business, they learn how to delegate and educate and teach their leadership team and their employees, it does free them up to spend more time with their family, to take vacations and not worry whether the business is going to be there afterwards. All of that stuff still has huge meaning for me because that's what I've been able to do and leverage my life. So all of this is still creating that legacy, spreading more of that information, getting it into the hands of more people that need it. And as I said, I really do believe that there's going to be more people. I don't want to say jumping in. I mean, that sounds negative, but beginning to explore and dabble in small business in ways that we haven't seen. And I'm sure a lot of that is going to be leveraging AI and what exactly that means for their business. So all of that is, it's how do we take people from who may not know much about small business to learning the necessary steps that are going to help them at least excel or at least reach a similar level of income for themselves in a short amount of time. That's a big part for me. And what my coach has been helping me remember of, like, coaching shouldn't just be for the ones who are doing well and the ones who are looking to scale and grow, which is a lot of who I work with, but also the ones that are just beginning and need that bit of information or need the best strategies of how to approach it.
Yeah, yeah, I would say it's one of the hardest things for beginning entrepreneurs and people that are just starting their business is knowing what to do and to do. I mean, I know a lot of the nitty-gritty things are like, how do I like legal questions? Like, how do I get this going and not getting fined by the IRS? Like, how do I what's my approach to marketing? How do I develop my plan there? Like, how do I figure out what my ideal client profile looks like? All these little questions that I'm sure you can help these entrepreneurs and solopreneurs with is things that you would think are common sense, but a lot of people it's tough to come up with these things when you've never done it before. And I'm glad that's why we have people like you to help out with stuff like that. It's amazing. Well,
Well,
we've
it's
covered,
it's one that if I may, it's one that
yeah,
has
of
always
course.
it's made me laugh because I'm like, I always would tell folks, I'm like, so much of what I do isn't mine. Like it's because of the books that I've read, and it's the seminars that I've attended. It's about what I've already studied and so forth along those lines. And so that's sometimes where the fear for me of AI can come in because I'm like, well, AI can do it faster than me. I mean, I use that's another great tool is somebody will reference a book and I'm like, great, a client really likes this book. I haven't read the book. I tend to be a slower reader because, as I said, I'm going to sit there and highlight it and journal on it. But I can now go to AI and go, give me a brief summary about this book. And at least then I'm up to speed so I can have the conversation with my client to go, why do you like this? What's good about it? What are the key lessons that you're taking from? Okay, great. And I can at least sound educated. There are so many great business books that are out there and business lessons and YouTube videos and so forth. But the problem sometimes is there's so much that nobody knows where to start and nobody is out there really just synthesizing and saying, hey, I direct people occasionally to a chapter of a book. And so I'm like, oh, do you have 7 habits of highly effective people? Okay, great. Go to this chapter, read about the Eisenhower matrix, about urgent and important and time management techniques. But it's sometimes pulling from that one and then jump into a different book, whether it be the compound effect or slide edge or whatever it is, jumping around like that to give that direction. And that I think is becoming a bit more of what I've got to do. So it's not just me telling them. I'm also giving credit to where, hey, this is where I learned it from. This is where that comes from. But again, just another piece of how you can leverage AI and how to get the most out of it. I think as people talk about books or podcasts or videos and so forth, it's capable of giving you the quick summary of all of those pieces of content.
Of course, yeah. I mean, I would say especially for the large language models like ChatGPT, Grok, Perplexity, all of them are great at summarizing information. Like you said, I think that's one of the biggest things that they do. Maybe even over helping with writing and being writing assistants is that deep research and being able to find the information they're looking for. This the click of a button. It's pretty awesome. But
If
we've
I can one more
of
because
course,
this
yeah,
is an
yeah,
important one and I wanted to include this in as I was thinking about what to say is one of the important things that I found as I've been coaching as long as I have is there's two things that I notice and one is that people don't know what they want. They don't know it, like they really don't know their goals. It's an interesting conversation that you ask me about goals. It's a conversation I have on a regular basis, but it's helping people get clear on what it is that they want, right? And we talked about that of like you've got to know the outputs that you want or the expectations that you have for your chat in order to kind of to get that from AI. But it starts with, know what you want. What are your
Mm,
goals? What's the outcomes that you want? What's the information that you want to learn? And that's such a critical piece of that puzzle, gaining that clarity. And the cool thing is, another tip if I can for folks as they're listening is if you're using any sort of AI, allow it to teach it to ask you questions to help you flush out and gain clarity in whatever topic you're talking about. And it'll ask you the right questions, but more importantly, it's going to do the job that I do and a lot of other coaches and consultants do is it's about it's asking better questions to help you gain clarity for yourself because so many people go through and they don't know what they want and so they're delivering on or their day to day goes through because it's what everybody else thinks everybody wants of them, right? And so it's not our goals, it's somebody else's goals and that's really that employee mindset. So until you get clear on what it is you want and why you want to use chat or how you can use and I keep saying chat but how you can use AI to benefit yourself, it really starts with that clarity and going a little bit deeper for yourself. Sorry, didn't mean to hijack
No,
your own
no,
podcast.
no worries at all. I've heard AI. Someone in the past podcast, actually, a couple people have called it this now, is a thought partner to their business, rather than
Absolutely.
being just a tool. It's a thought partner to help them think, to help them gather the information and know what they need as well. Like you said, I think that's awesome. Well, now we've kind of covered most of everything I wanted to cover today. But before you go, I wanted to leave you with this. What's the biggest lesson you've learned along your way as a coach, as an entrepreneur, that's helped you become who you are today?
Biggest lessons. Well, I'd be it'd be bad for me if I didn't say it. Probably number one is accountability. I know for myself, um, how much accountability, right? I mean, in absence of accountability, it's really easy for me to not do the things that I set for myself. And I've learned how I need to create accountability systems even for myself. But that's honestly, as much as I would love to say I'm this, amazing business coach and so forth. I think a lot of the success that my clients achieve is because I'm able to provide accountability. Um, the second one, biggest lesson, and it comes up all the time, is that people are a product of their conditioning, and they don't even know it, right? They don't know that like their brains were programmed by their parents and the people they hang out with and the teachers that they had, right? And that subconscious programming, which ties closely into the power of belief, right? That Henry Ford quote: "If you think you can or you think you can't, you're right." That idea. Man, that comes up so much and in the coaching that I do, and I even see it as a parent, about what somebody believes they're capable of doing, or just the general beliefs. Again, if you think AI is going to destroy the world, you're probably not going to buy into our conversation we just had,
Yeah.
and to recognize like how much that is. And right now we live in a very politically incensed society, and so much of that goes back to these beliefs. And it's like really stop and think about what are your core beliefs and where'd they come from. Um, and the last one would be probably the importance of compounding, right? Small incremental improvements, or compounding interest or anything along those lines is that's such a critical factor of like it's never too late to start, but the earlier that you start and you just start putting in those little deposits of whether it be information or as we've been talking today, learning about AI or learning about whatever's coming in up in your industry, and that personal and self-development, man, it compounds over time. It's a little bit at a
Mhm.
time. Even if I tell my clients like, hey, don't tell me you don't have time to read, because if you can read 5 to 10 pages a day, you're eventually going it's going to compound. You're going to finish a book, and then you're going to be reflecting on the book. You're going to possess that knowledge. Then you're going to go on to the next book. All of that small incremental deposits make a huge impact over the course of time, and we all have more time than we think.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you shared all that. It's definitely important to keep reinvesting in yourself as well. Once you see a small amount of success, take everything you learn from that and just dump it right back into yourself and continue to grow and like you said, compound and don't wait around. Start right now and don't procrastinate because it's the best thing you'll ever do. Well, listen, Sean, I really appreciate having you on today. I think you shared some amazing things we haven't heard before on the podcast, and it's amazing to hear, and I thank you for sharing some tips to the audience as well, some freebies out there. And again, I thank you so much, and I appreciate you coming on.
Hey, Ethan, I appreciate you and appreciate your audience, because anybody that's listened this far, hopefully, they'll comment and give you some of that boost of what you're doing, because this is amazing. Again, more information for people to gain and gain some insights and perspective from. So, thank you.
Of course.